In this live view from inside the Orion capsule, you can see Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen there in the black t-shirt. Looks like he is unpacking some of the crew's meals ahead of their midday meal coming up. We talked through some of their lunch options for today: beef stew, roasted turkey, cauliflower and cheese, cherry blueberry cobbler, butternut squash, roasted turkey again, cheese tortellini, vanilla pudding, and the most appetizing, chocolate pudding cake. And if you're a sauce fan like me, you'll like to know there is maple syrup, chocolate spread, peanut butter, hot sauce, spicy mustard, strawberry jam, honey, cinnamon, and almond butter.
Mi trabajo es fácil porque uso Clica, así es como llevo el control de todas mis tareas. Empiezo vaciando todo lo que tengo que hacer en una vista de lista. Después, asigno una prioridad y una fecha de entrega para mantener todo en orden. Creo estados personalizados para organizar mi progreso exactamente como quiero. Me gusta agregar el campo de elementos de acción. Tengo a mis compañeros de equipo como observadores para que estén al tanto. ClickUp hace que el trabajo sea fácil. Haz clic en el enlace para crear tu espacio de trabajo gratis.
If you look closely at Canadian space astronaut Jeremy Hansen, it appears that if he is wearing 2 watches, but one of those is Archer. Artemis II astronauts wear wristband devices that continuously monitor their movement and their sleep throughout the mission. This data is going to be used for real-time health monitoring and safety assessments. And what they've completed pre-flight and will complete in post-flight evaluations help us get deeper insights into their cognition and behavior, their teamwork, of course, and their sleep quality in the deep space environment and inside Orion. Archer stands for Artemis Research for Crew Health and Readiness. And everything we learned from this test flight helps us prepare for future mission planning and crew support systems.
Integrity exercise complete. Thank you.
Thanks, Integrity. We copy.
As you heard the call from pilot Victor Glover, he has completed exercise and was very kind enough to give us a view inside the cabin while he was exercising. We previously have seen the views from outside the cabin while the crew is exercising and how that imparts movement on the spacecraft. Now the crew is getting into their midday meal. Again, we were expecting to have a burn in 10 minutes, so if you are tuned in and looking for the outbound trajectory correction burn, that has been canceled for today. It was deemed unnecessary because our targeting was so accurate for the translunar injection burn. Again, that translunar injection burn came last night at 6:49 p.m. Central Time, 5 minutes and 50 seconds, using the Orbital Maneuvering Systems engine on the Orion spacecraft. And when you hear the crew call down and discuss their PCDs, that portable computing device, it's exactly what you see Hansen and Glover using right now, those tablets that allow them to track what they've been up to in the spacecraft, monitor their timelines, and communicate through email.
Houston Integrity, AGA readings when ready.
Mejora tus herramientas de trabajo con Google Workspace, Gemini integrado a Gmail, Drive y mucho más para potenciar la creatividad y el desempeño con una IA segura. Deja que tu productividad despegue con Google Workspace.
Y estando embarazada, ¿debo vacunarme?
¡Debes vacunarte!
¿Y será que vacuno a mi hija?
¡Debes vacunarla!
¿Y si soy adolescente, debo vacunarme?
¡Debes vacunarte!
Las vacunas salvan vidas, son seguras y gratuitas. Vengan todos en familia, las vacunas ya están listas.
Colombia tiene un amplio programa de vacunación gratuita para todas las personas que vivan o transiten por el territorio colombiano, sin importar la edad. Hay más de 3.000 puntos de vacunación por toda Colombia que esperan por ti y por tu familia. Las vacunas salvan vidas. Ministerio de Salud y Protección Social.
You guys, real time.
Copy.
With the completion of this block of exercise for today, Glover calling down readings from the AGA, the Anomaly Gas Analyzer. Those readings are requested before and after exercise, so they leave the device on throughout the time period that they are using that flywheel device. This helps teams on the ground monitor what the levels in the cabin are for the various molecules that Glover called out, and those are reported in parts per million. And we have just passed 2 days mission elapsed time. 2 days since the launch of Orion atop the Space Launch System spacecraft from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, a very smooth ride uphill. We are now 3 days and 19 minutes away from the opening of our lunar flyby, targeted for flight day 6, when the crew will fly around the moon, the first time in over 50 years for humans to do so. This is Artemis Mission Control, 2 days and 14 minutes mission elapsed time for the first flight of humans aboard Orion. And I am joined here by Paul Boehm, Orion Crew Support and Thermal Systems Manager. Thank you for joining us, Paul.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Leah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about your role. You just came from the Orion Mission Evaluation Room, is that right?
Yeah, actually, I just did. I was just checking our systems to see how things were going, and I am really pleased. So my role is I manage the hardware related to crew and all the crew systems on the vehicle, the ECLA system, the thermal systems, the suits, the flight crew equipment that are on the vehicle, and so been doing that for almost 14 years now.
Wow, that's impressive. And when we're talking about the ECLA system, that stands for Environmental Control and Life Support System. So what all makes up ECLIS?
ECLIS, yes. The biggest thing everybody thinks about for ECLIS is the life support system, the pressurization system, the air revitalization system that we have, and then the other parts of it that are also part of it is the thermal aspect of it, where we're cooling the air to be able to keep the crew temperature down exactly where they want it to be comfortable in the cabin, and so that is also part of our system as well.
Yeah, we heard them make some calls a couple days ago about being a little chilly, and your team is the one that works on making sure they're comfortable?
Yes, we've been working at the last couple days, trying some adjustments. It's one of the things I will stress with the new vehicle. We are learning every single day that we're flying this vehicle right now, especially with the crew in it. We flew Artemis 1, we learned some things about the systems there, but now we have the crew involved, which adds a whole new dynamic to the vehicle, and that is what is really what we're looking at today, and learning how to interact with the crew and adjust things as we need to make the crew comfortable.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you also work with the food systems a little bit as well. So they're actually getting ready for a midday meal. We've been fortunate enough to have in-cabin views for some of today, and we saw them getting out some of their food. So can you tell us about the food warmer?
Yeah, the food system is, the crew is, a lot of the food that we use is very similar to what they fly in ISS. It's the rehydratable food. And what we use on Orion, we have what we call a food warmer. It's about a little suitcase-sized device, and our biggest challenge is mass and volume on Orion going to the moon. And so we had to reduce the size of a galley. We would love to fly a galley, but we just can't because of the mass and volume challenge. So we have a suitcase that basically the crew inserts their food into the suitcase. It's a warming plate and heats it up to about 155 degrees.
Oh my goodness, that's much warmer than I expected you to say. That's really impressive.
It's what they use for doing the hot drinks, warming up the food that needs to be warmed up so that it tastes better when it's warmer. So they can put about 12 packages in there to be able to heat up those and be able to have some hot food during the flight.
I'm impressed. I used to be a taste tester here, and so I always enjoyed trying the food. I found it to be really good, and so
it is amazing what they can do.
Yes, it really is. So tell us more about the ECLIS system and how it's performed so far now, 3 days in.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I am extremely excited how it's performing right now, because it is actually better than our predictions, which is really great. The carbon dioxide removal system that we are flying for the first time on a human spacecraft, relying on it, this particular system has been outperforming what we thought it was going to do. It's been awesome. So really low levels, and the crew's so far been pretty complimentary of it.
That's incredible news. So you were talking a little bit about, the temperature and how this is the first flight with crew, and so everything you're doing is learning. So what is your team hoping to learn on this mission?
So the biggest thing we're doing, number one right now, as I mentioned earlier, was because it is a flight test and it's the first time we're doing it, we're learning how to tweak things, we have heaters and we have the systems like the CO2 system I mentioned earlier. We're learning how to balance all those things as we work with the crew, because each crew member is different metabolically. We have different met rates that the crews have as they're doing different exercises, like you saw them exercising earlier today, versus when you're doing a meal, you're pretty calm, and therefore you have a very low metabolic rate. So those variables really change how we interact with the crew, with our system. And so that's really what we're learning today, is how our system interacts with the human.
We need a few minutes. We'll call you when it's a good time.
Copy, sounds good. We'll wait for your call.
That call from the crew about performing a wastewater dump, we actually had great views earlier from inside the cabin while they did so. It was fascinating. Talking about, preparing for the future, but we've also had similar hardware on the space station for the past 25 years. So what are some differences in the hardware that we have now on Orion and versus what, we have on the International Space Station?
Yeah, our biggest difference between Orion, because we are a deep space vehicle, you have that very long return, and there's no coming back until when you do that translunar injection burn that we did yesterday, and so it's going to be many days before we can actually get back. So when we designed Orion, we really looked at the ecosystem to try to figure out how can we make it simpler, and then some of the systems that we have, as I mentioned, the CO2 removal system that we have, we needed a regenerable system such that you weren't flying consumables that you had to use up every day and replace. That's a lot of things. I think I calculated one time, it's about 143 basketballs worth of lithium hydroxide canisters we would need to do a 21-day mission with Orion versus our current system, which takes about 16, volume about 16 basketballs to be able to go do that. And so it's a regenerable system. It essentially removes the carbon dioxide from the cabin air, dumps it overboard, and those items are recyclable every time you expose them to vacuum. They regenerate, and now you can expose it back to the cabin air again and remove more CO2. So it's those regenerable type of systems. We flew some test examples of this on ISS to see how that went, but this is the first time we're actually flying with this type of system on a human spacecraft and completely relying on it.
Wow, amazing. And we've also heard some calls about the anomaly gas analyzer and taking those readings and the calls down from the crew about what they have gas-wise in the cabin. So how does your team take that data and interpret it?
So the biggest thing we have is certain limits on CO2 levels that we try to maintain without getting too specific, but I will. It's 4 millimeters of mercury is the level that we rely on. And basically we use those AGA measurements to basically bounce against that level that we're at. And so I believe, if I remember correctly, it's about 0.4 millimeters here on the ground that we're normally breathing. And so we try to stay as low as possible with carbon dioxide in the cabin. So, and the readings that we're seeing right now are actually kind of phenomenal for a human spacecraft. So it's great.
Wow, that is great. Well, congratulations to you and your team on a great mission so far, and we will be keeping an eye on everything as we move forward. But Paul, thank you again for joining us here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's been a great flight so far.
Houston Integrity, you are go for Blizzard.
Copy, go for Blizzard. Christina, while I've got you and the crew, I have some information regarding a replan for the afternoon. Shouldn't require too much back and forth, but let me know. First is, we don't have any other vehicle statuses from what we've already told you. So
¡Anda! ¡Dilo!
Tunja, esto es una locura. Por este mes de abril lleva un pollo entero por solo 29,900 pesos.
Solo en Tunja. Déjate secuestrar por el sabor hasta el 30 de abril. Ven y disfruta nuestro delicioso pollo apanado o pollo asado por solo...
Crew conference that's in 10 minutes. We also are going to do a little bit of a replan with you guys, managing the afternoon post-midday meal, basically after the PAO event. We'd like to give you a bit more time for exercise and sliding back that S-band SAT mode DFTO a little bit. And then exercise after that. This means that you'll have to manage some of that pre-lunar flyby cabin config and other activities just amongst yourselves. but this should allow us to get in all exercise and have enough time post-PAO event for that S-band SAT mode DFTO. The DSN EMERCOM DFTO needs to stay where it is because there's some vehicle maneuvers that have to happen with that.
Hey, Chris, let me just make sure. Are you saying we can defer the S-band SAT mode DFTO, but do the DSN EMERCOM on time? And Chris, if it helps you, Victor and I have both exercised, so he is more than happy to do the S-band SAT mode DFTO on time.
Thanks, Reed. Just talking down here with the team to make sure I got the right words to give you. We'd like that S-band SAT mode DFTO to slide 30 minutes to the right for some ground config, but then the EMERCOM DFTO will stay where it is.
Okay, that sounds good. Ike will be ready 30 late for S-band SAT mode, but if you could also please give us a heads up when your commanding is done and you're ready for that activity, that would help us out.
Absolutely, Wilco. The other thing we want to remind you is that in your midday meal, we have about a 1 hour forward DSN LOS, but for most of that, we've got return. And kind of in the middle of your midday meal period, you'll notice there's, like I mentioned, this good Earth and Moon viewing positions. It's also roughly when you're going to pass close to the halfway point between the Earth and the Moon, and you can reference your altitude on the PFD for that midway point.
Bueno, mis amigos,
105,205 miles, and it's still going up pretty quick.
estamos aquí en la cápsula que va hacia la Luna. Ven ustedes los astronautas, las 4 astronautas. En este momento los 4 astronautas que se dirigen hacia el satélite, hacia la Luna. Están a 3 días, 6 horas y 54 segundos para llegar a la cara opuesta de la Luna.
Chris Birch, also a NASA astronaut here in Mission Control Houston, up to the crew aboard Orion, named Integrity. This view of Artemis Mission Control, the Orbit 1 team still on console.
Tenemos ahí
the crew was enjoying their midday meal. We do not have fresh foods flying on Artemis 2. Orion does not have refrigeration or a late load capability prior to launch that we need for fresh foods. So we have shelf-stable foods aboard Orion and rehydratable foods that the crew is used to, having flown on the International Space Station.
En una navegación sin
precedentes. As we saw in the earlier video, the Artemis 2 crew had direct input into the food that they have available during the flight. They were able to sample and rate all of the foods on the menu, and their preferences were balanced with the nutritional requirements needed and what Orion can accommodate.
Estamos en vivo y en directo desde la cápsula Orión, donde se les dio permiso, tienen un permiso los 4 astronautas
We just
para
spoke with
tomar
Paul Boehm, Orion Crew Support and Thermal
algunos
Systems Manager,
comida,
telling us a little
algunos
bit more about the food
pasabocas
warmer
que
on
llevan ellos
Orion.
allí.
So if the crew needed to heat up any of the
También
foods
se
that
les
they
dio
are eating
permiso para que
today,
hicieran
they were able to do
ejercicios.
so with a
Están
approximately briefcase-sized
descansando en estos
food
momentos,
warmer
los ven
to heat
ustedes
the
ahí en
meals
la
as
cápsula,
needed.
la cámara que está dentro de la cápsula especial, y están aprovechando pues para alimentarse, tomar agua, tomar algunos medicamentos, a tomar también algunas hidratantes, bebidas hidratantes. Y van de viaje, van viajando. Les repito, quedan 3 días, 52 minutos y 9 segundos para que lleguen hacia la luna, para dar una órbita, hacer una órbita y finalmente regresar. No necesitan, en este momento no necesitan motores. La cápsula va, digamos, al garete, va presionada por la luna, por la influencia de la luna, para llegar a la órbita lunar y dar una vuelta y regresarse nuevamente sin encender el motor. Los motores en estos momentos están apagados. En caso de urgencia, pues ellos los prenden, pero no hay necesidad, ya está programado, computarizado que deben hacer la vuelta. Ustedes ven allí en el recuadro de abajo, en la parte inferior izquierda de sus pantallas, ven un cuadrito negro. Allí donde está la parte de redondita, la más pequeña, el círculo más pequeño, ahí va la cápsula, ahí va Orión, y la luna es la que ven ustedes en la parte final, hacia la parte izquierda de Orión está la luna. Fíjense ustedes que ya está alejándose de la Tierra, que es el círculo más grande, casi va más de la mitad. Son 4 días que se demoran para llegar, 4 días y 5 días para llegar nuevamente a entrar en órbita de la Tierra para precipitarse al mar. Este es el segundo día. Ya llevan 2 días, 32 minutos y 55 segundos que partió de Cabo Kennedy, Cabo Cañaveral. Los ven ustedes que se alimentan, están en recreo, si es que se puede decir de esa forma. Están descansando, ya hicieron ejercicio algunos, para luego ocuparse de sus quehaceres dentro de la cápsula. Está todo controlado hasta el momento, todo está controlado, no tienen ningún problema técnico, digamos así, ni tampoco ellos. Se ven muy contentos ahí dentro. Aproximadamente esta cápsula son de unos 5 metros por 6. Es una cápsula bastante grande, más grande que el Apolo 11, que la misión Apolo. es de anotar que van 3 hombres y una mujer. La mujer, por primera vez, va una dama hacia la luna. Van a entrar en órbita a la luna dentro de 3 días, 47 minutos y 31 segundos. Vamos a ver qué nos dicen los en inglés. Es decir, estará llegando el lunes 6 de abril, lunes 6 de abril de 2026, estarán llegando detrás de la parte oculta de la luna, la parte que nunca hemos visto nosotros, la cara opuesta de la luna.
You to first confirm we are in coast to default 4100, and then please put all 4 saws into safe harbor A, then start the CPR demo. I'll copy.
Entonces estamos nuevamente en vivo, esta transmisión en vivo.
Good readback. Thanks so much.
Transmisión en vivo directamente desde la cápsula Orión, donde estamos viendo los 3 astronautas hombres y la astronauta mujer. Pero por primera vez también va un hombre de color. Lo ven ustedes ahí, el hombre, uno del Canadá. Por primera vez también va una mujer a la luna. Estos 4 astronautas ya habían estado en la estación internacional, Estación Espacial Internacional. Habían durado ya mucho tiempo allí también. Ya tienen mucha, pero mucha experiencia en la parte espacial. Nuevamente se vuelve al centro de apoyo, al centro donde se monitorea todo lo que hacen la cápsula Orión, los 4 astronautas que van camino a la luna. Esta es la misión Artemis 2, que tiene la misión precisamente de llegar a la Luna, llevar nuevamente, después de 51 años, llevar nuevamente al hombre a la superficie lunar. En esta ocasión no van a llegar a la superficie. Será en el 2028 que van la Orión, en la cápsula Orión irán los astronautas que van a la superficie lunar en el 2028.
We did have video of Victor, which we have stopped going out on our PAO stream.
Sí, la Artemis 3 será la que llevará los astronautas hacia la superficie lunar en el año 2028. Esto es prácticamente una misión de prueba. Es una misión de prueba donde se están haciendo los diferentes experimentos.
Back with views aboard Orion as the crew continues their midday meal. NASA astronaut Victor Glover having completed his exercise. Cleaning up in space. Obviously, we do not have showers aboard the Orion spacecraft.
Bueno, nos estaban comunicando allí que Víctor es el que estaba sin camisa, que lo ven ustedes en pantaloneta. Acabó de hacer sus ejercicios, se está bañando prácticamente. Este es el baño que se dan ellos, con una toalla mojada, algo así.
Hay elecciones que no necesitan explicación. Productos en los que se confía porque funcionan con propuestas irresistibles. Elegirlos es cuidarse, es elegir bien.
Sí, les comentábamos que está bañándose, hizo ejercicios, como se sudó, se está limpiando el sudor con unas toallas húmedas. Se estaba limpiando las plantas de los pies después que había sudado, y lo ven ustedes que se acaloró, se quitó la camisa, se quitó los zapatos y ahora se está haciendo su aseo, se va a perfumar y para continuar nuevamente con el trabajo. Tendrán más adelante tendrán un descanso donde podrán dormir. Para dormir se meten dentro de un saco. Hay algunos que se meten en un saco, hay otros que prefieren estar por fuera y duermen ahí donde descansan para reanudar el trabajo después de un sueño reparador. Deben estar cansados. Estamos en vivo y en directo desde la cápsula Orión que va para la Luna. Lleva 4 astronautas a dar la vuelta en la órbita de la Luna. Entrarán en órbita de la Luna dentro de 3 días, dentro de 3 días. 36 minutos y 5 segundos estarán allá estos 4 astronautas que van a toda velocidad. Van en vía directa con los motores apagados. Los motores no van encendidos. Esto va prácticamente por gravedad, por la gravedad y la atracción que hace la Luna. Van por gravedad y darán la vuelta y se vendrán nuevamente. No dan sino una sola vuelta en la órbita de la Luna. Y en caso de que se necesite encender los motores, pues los encienden para el retorno nuevamente a la órbita de la Tierra, para dirigirse hacia el océano donde los están esperando en Cabo Cañaveral. O sea que ya está programado, va todo bajo computación, no tiene ningún problema. No va a suceder nada, van a retornar sanos y salvos a sus hogares y a visitar a su familia acá en la Tierra. Cuando ustedes vean la Luna, esta noche o mañana en la noche, cuando vean la Luna, acuérdense de ellos que van para allá, no han llegado todavía, le quedan 3 días, 34 minutos y 20 segundos para que lleguen. Ahí se ve eso que están viendo ustedes allí en pantalla, es la cápsula Orión, esa la que ven a la derecha, ahí a la derecha, la blanca esa, y allá está el sol está pegando de frente, contraluz. Esa es la cápsula que va viajando. Y ven un puntico arriba, esa es la Tierra. La Tierra la están viendo como un puntico ya, se está alejando bastante de ella. Lo demás que ven ustedes son sombras que se hacen con el reflejo de la cámara, el reflejo de la luz de la cámara. Lo demás son sombras. Esos círculos que ven ustedes ahí son sombras que deja la luz que se refracta en la cámara. Son en cada panel que tiene la cápsula Orión, tienen una cámara montada. Por eso se ve así en esa forma de blanco y negro. Ahora volvemos nuevamente a la parte interna de la cápsula Orión, donde están los 4 astronautas ya se volvieron a su zona de trabajo. Están mirando algunos computadores, algunas tratando nuevamente de organizarse para continuar su trabajo.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Getting a live look inside the Orion spacecraft. They are still...
Integrity, toilet will be available throughout the LOS.
The crew is timelined in their midday meal right now. Obviously, they have mostly finished eating, but the ground teams also let them know they should have some great views of the moon and the Earth outside of their windows, should they choose to take pictures at this time. As we saw earlier, there are also timelined wastewater dumps from Orion, and during that time the crew is instructed to not use the toilet. So the crew is about to go into an LOS, loss of signal, while they're on the Deep Space Network, and the ground teams here were calling to let them know that there will be no wastewater dumps scheduled during that time, so they'll be able to use the toilet as they need. This view outside the Orion spacecraft, you can see those solar arrays positioning. And a reminder, you can keep up with where Orion is at any time by visiting nasa.gov/track-Artemis. Currently, the spacecraft is 122,500 miles away from Earth and 146,000 miles away from the moon. Up next on the Artemis II cruise timeline today will be the CPR demo. Ground teams have requested that as the crew conducts this demonstration with choking and CPR responses in the cabin, that they configure one of the cameras for recording. They'll be able to use the footage captured for this for future training use.
¿Pensaron que era magia o qué?
¿Qué están viendo?
Están mirando tu teléfono que tiene la pantalla roja.
¿Pero acaso no saben? Es Truecaller avisando de esta.
We are 2 days, 1 hour, 3 minutes into the flight of Artemis 2, the first flight of crew aboard Orion. Spacecraft now 123,000 miles away from Earth. You're getting a live look inside the capsule as our 4 crew members, Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Jeremy Hansen, and Christina Cook, are wrapping up their midday meal, getting the opportunity to take photos out the window of Earth and the Moon. We are in an LOS period, loss of signal from the ground side. This was tracked and communicated to the crew. However, we do receive communications from the crew members. Obviously, we have their live video right now. Inside Orion, you see they have dimmed the cabin lights. They have this option to allow them to get better views outside the window so there aren't any reflections from that lighting onto the windows. Being that we are 123 miles away from Earth and that distance continuing to grow, we are 145,000 miles away from the moon, and I think I previously said 123 miles from Earth. That's 123,000. So we are getting closer to that halfway point between the Earth and the moon. We look forward to the opportunity to share some of these pictures that they are taking today, along with everything else during the mission. We did receive some beautiful images this morning from the crew as they departed Earth after the translunar injection burn yesterday. You can follow NASA on social media at NASA or at NASA Artemis to see these pictures as we receive them.
¿Cómo se siente tener 68 años?
Incluso mejor que cuando tenía los 30.
Y te ves elegante. ¿Cuál es tu secreto?
Caminata de Tai Chi. 15 minutos al día cambiaron mi vida.
¿Eso es todo?
Eso es todo.
This is Artemis Mission Control. Clearly what you have on your screen is a visualization. We are in a loss of signal with the Artemis 2 crew and the Orion spacecraft. This was a tracked LOS while we are on the Deep Space Network. We expect to regain communications shortly. In the meantime, the crew their lunch break to photograph Earth and the moon outside of the cabin windows. This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Mission elapsed time of 2 days, 1 hour, 26 minutes of the flight of Artemis 2. Our crew members aboard have wrapped up their midday meals. They are now moving into the CPR demo. This allows the crew to practice how they would practice CPR should they ever have the need aboard the Orion spacecraft. They will record this for the flight teams here on Earth to analyze and use as future training. You also just saw some movement on the camera. They were moving the solar array wings into the safe harbor position. This is what we do when we expect any movement inside the spacecraft, whether that be exercise or something like this CPR demo. We won't have inside views during the CPR demo.
Houston integrity in the blind. We are in 4100 coast default. 4 arrays are safe. Beginning the CPR demo now.
And if you heard that call from Commander Reed Wiseman, he says in the blind, not knowing whether we can hear them or not because we recently experienced a loss of signal or an LOS. Obviously, we did hear that call from the crew.
Mi trabajo es fácil porque uso Clica. Así es como llevo el control de todas mis tareas. Empiezo vaciando todo lo que tengo que hacer en una vista de lista. Después, asigno una prioridad y una fecha de entrega para mantener todo en orden. Creo estados personalizados para organizar mi progreso exactamente como quiero. Me gusta agregar el campo de elementos de acción. Tengo a mis compañeros de equipo como observadores para que estén al tanto. ClickUp hace que el trabajo sea fácil. Haz clic en el enlace para crear tu espacio de trabajo gratis.
Cartagena de Indias, miembro de la Red Mundial de Turismo Religioso, te espera en esta Semana Santa. Ilumínate en el Lucernario, encuentra la paz en la Confesatón y recorre nuestros templos patrimoniales. Disfruta el Festival del Dulce, la música religiosa y la carrera Corre y Anuncia tu Fe. Cartagena desde siempre, una ciudad de fe. Invita al Ministerio de Comercio, Industria y Turismo, Fontur, la Alcaldía de Cartagena y Corpoturismo.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The crew aboard Orion conducting their CPR demo, learning how they would offer CPR to a crew member in need if the need ever arose on the spacecraft. Of course, this is just a demonstration and will be used for future training for future flyers. Another consideration when we fly in space are solar eruptions. Between the Apollo 16 and 17 missions, the solar eruptions were a near miss for our lunar explorers. Today, those Apollo-era flares serve as a reminder of the threat of radiation exposure for astronauts in space, as well as technology. So understanding and predicting these solar eruptions is crucial for our safe exploration. We now have data, technology, and resources available that have improved, which enable advancements towards space weather forecasts and astronaut protection. These are all key to NASA's Artemis program to return human astronauts to the moon.
It's August 1972, and Ian Richardson, a future NASA scientist, is watching TV when the BBC announces
the interference is caused by solar activity.
He didn't know it then, but the sun had just erupted in one of the most powerful solar events ever recorded. There was no threat to humans because Earth's magnetic field deflects much of the sun's radiation. But the explosions were so powerful that intense radiation disrupted TV signals and caused radio blackouts. So what if you were outside Earth's magnetic field? On the moon and beyond, astronauts face the risk of extreme radiation exposure. Luckily, the intense radiation in 1972 occurred right between the Apollo 16 and 17 missions when no astronauts were in their path. As NASA plans missions to go back to the moon and then onto Mars, predicting the sun's activity to protect astronauts from space radiation is one of our biggest priorities.
One of the biggest unknown factors about going to space is the radiation hazard from the sun.
This is Ian today, studying the effects of the sun, also known as the field of heliophysics.
The sun is always emitting radiation like the light we see, but certain energetic particles, like from the August 1972 events, can be far more harmful.
To be able to forecast solar energetic particles, we need to know how the sun energizes them. The sun is made up of electrically charged particles called plasma. As this plasma moves, it builds up energy inside its massive magnetic field. This energy is usually released in two types of explosions. Flares are intense flashes of light. Coronal mass ejections are giant eruptions of solar material.
These solar eruptions send shock waves across the solar system, accelerating particles as they go.
These are solar energetic particles, or SEPs. They consist mainly of protons and possess a lot of energy that can affect satellite measurements and humans.
SEPs can bombard you with a lot of radiation in a short period of time. They can penetrate your skin, damage your DNA, and increase your chances of getting cancer and radiation sickness.
But they don't occur with every solar eruption. Only a small number of flares and coronal mass ejections create SEPs.
So we're trying to predict when SEPs form and how they travel through space.
At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the Community Coordinated Modeling Center, or CCMC, is dedicated to testing prediction models. Working with global partners, they use data from NASA satellites at different vantage points and models to figure out how solar explosions behave, including how shockwaves energize SEPs. And as we get better at predicting, we get more time to prepare.
Preparation for an SEP event, of which you may know that is already coming and perhaps the magnitude as well, the technique that you would want to use is to put as much mass between you and the source.
On the surface of the Moon or Mars, astronauts can go underground or build shelter with local materials. But in transit, astronauts can only be protected with what's on the spacecraft.
Which means that you might have elements on a spacecraft that have multiple purposes.
NASA's space radiation specialists are testing different ways to do this. One strategy they tested on the Orion spacecraft involves crew members barricading themselves with as much mass as possible in the center of the spacecraft. Other possible techniques in development include vests that add mass and electrically charged surfaces that deflect particles.
In terms of radiation protection and radiation mitigation, the factor of time is extraordinarily important.
The sun has a natural 11-year cycle that transitions through low and high activity, which is indicated by the number of sunspots on the surface. More sunspots mean more eruptions, resulting in a higher risk for SEPs. But during this increased solar activity, the sun's magnetic field strengthens, enhancing its shield against another important source of radiation, galactic cosmic rays. These are charged particles traveling at nearly the speed of light that are thought to come from supernova explosions from within our galaxy and possibly further out in the universe. If solar energetic particles are intense sporadic storms, then galactic cosmic rays are a constant drizzle. Galactic cosmic rays are more sparse, but also much more energetic. They include heavier elements that can penetrate through vast amounts of materials. Understanding the rate of galactic cosmic rays helps us determine how much time astronauts can spend in space safely. To date, humans have only been on the lunar surface for a cumulative total of about 12 days. A trip to Mars will take 6 to 10 months each way. That means even more radiation exposure, and so NASA is doing work to prepare for that.
The moon is going to be a test bed for us in order to be able to prepare for Mars. The more that we understand the impact and the duration of radiation on the moon, the more we can extrapolate that to the length of time that we will be spending in transit and on the surface of Mars.
You're looking at a live view of the outside of the Orion spacecraft. Specifically in this frame, you can see the European Service Module and the Orbital Maneuvering Service engine. And in the video we just watched about deep space radiation, you saw some team members demonstrating how they could use cargo transfer bags to help protect a crew from radiation exposure. That is something that this crew will test out as well. On Flight Day 8, they have a radiation shelter demo timeline. During that time, the crew will build a makeshift radiation shelter within the cabin and prepare the lockers on the spacecraft for ingress. Of course, this is just a demonstration and practice in case it were to be needed for a future mission. Orion is currently traveling 3,246 miles per hour, 125,130 miles from Earth, and 144,220 miles away from the Moon. If you're just tuning in with us today, we were expecting to have the outbound trajectory correction burn this afternoon. However, that burn was canceled as it was deemed unnecessary following such a precise translunar injection burn yesterday. Teams confirmed we are on the proper trajectory to send us around the moon and bring the crew home on Flight Day 10 with a splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. So they were able to cancel the outbound trajectory correction burn. And according to Christina Cook, the crew was able to enjoy a snow day. This is Artemis Mission Control at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. The Orbit 1 team is currently on console, but you'll see a lot of activity happening in the room as the Orbit 2 team comes in to begin their shift. Of course, Mission Control is staffed 24/7 while in flight with Orion. And just down the hall, we have the International Space Station Flight Control Room, which has been staffed 24/7 now for over 25 years. Integrity Houston, comm check, back with you on DSN.
We have you loud and clear.
Fantastic.
Houston, we are complete with CPR demo if you want to get everything back to normal after that.
We copy. Thanks, Christina.
This is Artemis Mission Control here at Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. We have reestablished communications with the crew after an expected loss of communication through the Deep Space Network. We are now back in full communication with them. The crew reported they just completed their CPR demo. Again, just a practice of how they would execute CPR in the Orion cabin if need be. They were able to film this and will share it with the ground after their flight. And this view on your screen coming from a camera mounted on one of Orion's 4 solar arrays. Each solar array wing has its own camera, and this one is currently pointed back to see all of us on Earth. Wave hello, you look great today.
And Houston, we're just curious about toilet. Is it off, hands off right now?
Integrity, toilet is go for use.
Okay, integrity copies.
This live view inside Orion of the Artemis 2 crew.
Integrity feedback on your camera position. For your information, the top third of the flags is not visible. And now where you're placing the flags, I can see all of them. On the bottom part of the image, I can see about midway on Christina's calves, and I can see Victor's head and the camera to the in the right side of the field of view from the perspective of this camera. Copy, thumbs. Looks great. Christina is well centered in the frame.